Europe is certainly having its day in the sun. It's been a long time coming. As you mentioned, Europe was probably about 1/6 of where the US was in mega fundings or unicorns last year. This year, it's about a third. We expect next year for it to hit 50 to 60%. We also expect the sectors to remain strong, including fintech and delivery and e-commerce. Compared to the US, we expect Europe to outperform certainly in 22 and beyond.
Steve, you also mentioned rapid growth that you can anticipate here in Europe versus, say, the United States. And I've got to say, I've seen it at a number of fintech conferences, companies that were worth a certain amount 1 year. A few months later, they've gone back to the market for another round of private fundraising, and the valuation is just through the roof. What can you tell us about the ascent of the valuations of some of these big tech names here in Europe?
Yeah, great question, Karen. What we've seen, so if you look at the public market and the NASDAQ, this year, software names and fintech names rose, the top quartile rose on average about 25%. We're at the bottom quartile declining 35%. This is the first year in 5 years the bottom quartile of tech names declined in the public market. That dispersion we're seeing even wider in the private market. The public markets tend to be really good at including macro components into valuation, where the private markets tend to identify winners. And so what we expect to see this year, particularly in strong fintech names, is that the leaders in each of the particular subsectors are going to attract much more capital at much higher valuations versus the, say, number 2 or number 3 player, which we call the laggards. That will continue into into 22 and beyond.
Steve, it's been a very tricky year, it seems to me, for investors in some of the so-called network effect tech stocks, though. I mean, I just take a couple of, like Just Eat, down 52% year to date, or Deliveroo, down 23% year to date here. Some of these companies continue to promise that they will make a profit and come good, but you do get the sense that investors may be losing patience.
Yeah, well, Amazon really reset expectations with 20 plus years of no profits until it created quite a bit of profitability. I think what you're seeing in the delivery space is a lot of disruption with the emerging quick commerce players, those that deliver in 10, 15, 20 minutes. In addition, COVID, there's a little bit of a COVID unwind right now. So those names have performed really well during COVID. We're seeing them back off in the last month or two. And I think that might be a macro trend, but long term, the trend of getting what you order in 7 days to 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, next day, and now within an hour, 15 minutes is going to continue. And we expect fulfillment names to be very strong into the new year. In addition to those that do a great job acquiring customers, those that own the customers should do very well, in our opinion, Jeff.
Steve, we know that there was an acceleration around these technology themes with the pandemic, and what was different in Europe was that we had a lot of business-to-business tech names. That was one of the criticisms why Europe was left behind, because the United States had created all these big technology names that really fulfilled many of the customer needs. How do you think things are changing where some of these B2B businesses are required at this point, and that's why Europe potentially is having its moment in the sun?
Yeah, well, so Europe always graduated more STEM graduates than the U.S. Where it was more difficult in Europe relative to the U.S. was management. So finding those right mid-level managers, whether it's VP of engineering, sales, and marketing, was more difficult. That's changed. So the biggest companies in the world have been in Europe for a long time. You're seeing Amazon and Tesla open up in Berlin. You're seeing more movement of tech specialists to the UK. And what I think you're going in B2B, you're going to see stronger performance out of Europe relative to the US. Now, the US will still be much longer, but you do have some very interesting companies, particularly emerging from the DACH region, relative to fintech, which is much stronger in the UK.